minutes late. Hey, folks. Welcome to another Broker Talk show. This is a real estate show that no bullshit here. I am joined today by Charles Bourque of the Charles Company, a great builder, known him many, many years. He refuses to work with me, but I don't care. I just like him. Uh, Builds great buildings in the Metro West area. He's third generation of builders, and that says a lot. I would want to work. I would want to be operated by a third generation surgeon. Uh, so
Probably too old by now.
yeah, yeah. So Charles, your long history is pretty impressive. Your dad didn't give you anything; you had to earn it. I wonder if his father was like that. If your father had to earn it.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Larry. I've always wanted to ask him. I've heard stories through the years, their life back home, I say, in Canada was a lot different than ours. And, once in a while he would tell me stories of, these kids were, 14 years old, off to work. For an example, they lived in a little county of St. Anthony, New Brunswick, and they were doing big hospitals. They did more institutional work.
Yeah.
So they built hospitals and cathedrals, churches is one of their specialties. So they built, for example, he would tell me as we were driving to Canada, as we were, young kids, he'd say, "Oh yeah, the hospital over there." He says, "We built that." I'm like, "Oh my God," the hospital went on for like a mile, and I'm like, "Wow," But I said, "How did you?" I said to him, "All right, well, how did you get to work every day?" He goes, "Well, we roomed here, because that was about, back then the roads were dirt roads, and they would room with 15 guys or 20 guys in some hotels or space or rented out places. And at 14 years old, they were there for like, 6 to 8 months at a time,
Wow.
you know, come
Yeah.
back. So I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, I'm saying to myself. So, he would tell me stories like that once in a while, not too much, but he would tell me, how they worked and how he had older brothers because he was one of 14 in the family,
Wow.
and they all worked. Most of them all worked for for their father at the time,
Yeah.
but their father had, they probably, from what I'm hearing, they were running between 200 and 300 men at a time,
Wow.
back then,
That's a big, big crew.
building these. Oh yeah, and uh, but their way of living and the way of working is far different than the way we
Yeah.
grew up.
Yeah.
I'm saying
Yeah.
that's what I'm getting to with with
Yeah.
the story. So it was just a different way of life,
They had
for them.
they had 14 kids because your kids worked for you. Now your kids don't work for you. You work for them. So
Oh, basically, yeah, they had a full hockey team there. They, yeah. So now it's a different world. But something tells me that it wasn't easy.
yeah.
Working like that in those type of environments, and they were young kids at 14 years old, and a lot of older guys, coming back. I'm sure they were, weren't exactly angels. So they learned. So they had to learn pretty quick there.
I picked up
So
I picked up my
huh?
son. I picked up my son where he was caddying for the first time in his life, and
Okay.
I picked him up and I said, "So, did you learn anything?" And he said, "A little bit about golf and a whole lot more about bad words to say."
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, you got the point.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
my father didn't elaborate too much, but if you read between the lines, I'm sure he learned a lot.
yeah.
At a very young age.
You know,
So,
this has to be going on down in Florida right now, where the hurricane went through and everything is devastated. They had to bring in lots and lots of crews down there to rebuild that, and I'm sure many of them are staying on site because you can't.
oh, yeah, how do I say this? The way I see that down there now, they have a lot of labor force,
Yeah,
and I think that's about the only thing, the labor force down in Florida. I didn't study it, too much. I do remember when we had that unfortunate tornadoes
yeah,
that went through here in the, I don't know, what, 10, 15 years ago, give or take, and more in the West. And the people were very skeptical about any outsiders coming in, even, even us going in to have a look at it to see if it made sense. We weren't really welcome. And I'm sure that's the same in Florida.
yeah,
You have companies in Florida, some of the big national companies, and I'm trying to think, there's Belfour example is one.
sure,
They're a national outfit, and this is what they're geared for, is for, disaster relief, building. And they come in, they set up a forces of thousands of men, and they organize the whole thing. So it's become more of that type of
okay,
redevelopment, if you will, more than, me showing up in a pickup truck.
sure,
Um, it's
sure.
shying away from that stuff. There's somebody like companies like Belfour, and there's a few others that I like,
Toll
that are
Brothers,
like them.
do the Toll Brothers do
Now,
this?
Toll Brothers, now they wouldn't do anything like that. They just stick to new construction,
Sure,
more on contract basis. But Belfour would come in a situation like this where they understand, and they work in conjunction with insurance companies,
yeah,
and that's all they do.
yeah,
So they know the lingo, they know how to do the paperwork, they know how to handle every aspect of the rebuilding process through the insurance, and
sure,
that's what they do. And I'm sure there's a couple others out there that are like Balfour, but they're extremely well equipped, and you can be darn sure um, that the governor of Florida, he's made it very clear that no one's coming in there to rip people off. He made that very, very, very clear. So it kind of pushed the people that shouldn't be there out of the way, and
oh,
let
that's good.
the guys who can really handle it do the work. So it's a much more controlled environment
Hmm.
in this process of
Sure.
redeveloping this thing. So they got a good handle on it. You don't hear anything about it at this point right now. So that means that it's all going well.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
As far as we
I
know.
know some
Yeah.
friends that are there that are that do the type of how do I say it, highway work. Like for an example, they had to rebuild those bridges, right, to go to Marco and Sanibel Islands.
Yeah.
They put those bridges up, what, in 3 days,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Well,
Um,
yes. And a little scary.
a little scary.
Yeah.
Yep. But they didn't have anything to work with, but they put it all together.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I know some of those guys that do that type of work that are down there doing that, but they're geared for it. That's what they do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
I think of
so that's just an
CBs,
example.
the CBs,
Yeah, yeah,
those kind of guys can go in and throw stuff up.
that's
And
correct. Army Corps of Engineers, they
yep.
go in,
Yeah.
and they in conjunction with the state representatives are able to do that. It's kind of when they need to build a bridge in 3 days. Isn't it funny how they can do that type of work in 3 days, but we can't fix other things that go on in this country? It's amazing to me.
Yeah.
But we'll leave that for another day. I don't want to go off
Yeah.
into that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Uh,
this is not a political show in any regard.
no, it's not.
Yeah.
None, in no regards. That's
Uh,
exactly right.
um,
Um,
so we're focused on what the Charles Company does, and you've been
sure.
at this so long through so many generations. You've seen so many mistakes. What are the
Yeah.
top types of mistakes that builders make?
Uh, you know, I know this is going to it's like a double-edged sword. And I wrote that down here today because that was one of the things we talked about. And I think communication is a major mistake that builders make or have with clients. And I think that goes both ways.
Right.
And I made that as one of my priorities today is communication.
Right.
And I say communication because even at the initial process of meeting a client and looking at a project, the communication can get lost right from that point, right from the get-go. And then it just, unfortunately, the better of a communicator you are, the better you're going to be to get the jobs. But even at that, communication, if you don't keep the communication going all the way through the job, which is probably the most important part, you won't get a good referral and you may not finish the job.
Sure.
And so I think, I think that, and we're all guilty of it, Larry. I think if it was, I've made those mistakes. And that's why that I've always wanted to meet, like, for example, I've always met clients on, you pick a day. I don't care if it's a Saturday morning, Sunday morning, Wednesday afternoon or whatever. You pick the day and I'll meet with you. I need 30 minutes of your time and we'll go over the project every week. I never miss. And I try to, I want to meet with the clients, because if you can meet every week, yep, there's going to be mistakes that are made, on a project, but at least you can catch them. They don't go too far.
You catch them right away. I have an interesting story coming from one of my clients many years ago. We're sitting there, new construction, great builder, first-time home buyer. And so we were there and there was a package, here's the price of the house and I'll give you a package and you can put it in the kitchen. You understand what I mean by package. So it was, you're going to add an extra little bit. So I'll give you a better stove if you want. Here's the stove you're going to get, that kind of stuff. And she was thrilled with that. They were thrilled with that. And then they went on talking and said, well, what if I want granite? And what if I want special paint? And he said, I could give that to you. I can do that for you. I can give it to you. And so we got towards the end of that deal so many years ago. And they were hoping that they could get the price drop because the market changed. Market changes all the time. It's up and down. You make a decision, and all of a sudden, 2009, 2010, remember that?
Oh, yes, I do.
Yeah, it cratered.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
It cratered.
It cratered. And the clients, the buyers, didn't understand that the fact that the builder said, I can give it to you, meant that he was putting it in and not charging you more, but he had costs involved in that.
Sure.
And because of that, he couldn't lower the price. But they kept saying, but you gave it to us. You said, what's the definition of give? And it was a circle. So communication is everything, but you don't know what people understand or don't understand. And your weekly visits figure stuff like that out pretty quickly.
100% correct. In a situation like that, the builder said, yeah, we can give that to you because, for an example, is that, yeah, we can do that because we know how to do it. But the word give, it has obviously one meaning for the folks and one meaning for the builder.
Exactly.
So the old adage of what will be misunderstood will be misunderstood. What can be misunderstood will be misunderstood. So that's what happened in that case. What should have happened is, yes, we can do that for you. We'll write you up a change order for those items. This is what was allotted, or this is what was allowed, and this is what you want to have. Here's the difference of those two items. So that way they would have understood right away what that meant, right?
They were
So,
they were smart people. My clients, they were smart people, and they ultimately understood what it meant.
mhm.
Because yes, it was giving because you weren't being charged more, but it was costing him something, so I can't lower my price.
That's correct.
Yeah,
Right.
it
Oh,
it it was reasonable. So, what are some of the others besides communication issues?
yeah. Uh, Not having weekly meetings. Um, I've touched on that a second ago. I think that's imperative
Yeah,
with projects. And not only, we had to do all this stuff by uh, longhand, if you will, when we had weekly meetings.
yeah,
Um, Meaning what we did is we wrote field notes with the meetings, or took notes from the meeting,
yeah,
and we would send off an email with that week's notes. So that way everybody understood, you know, what the meeting was about, what all the topics were, what was said, what wasn't said, and what was agreed to and not agreed to. So everybody understood. So there was a full story all the way through the whole process. And again, communication.
yeah,
I've made those mistakes. I've done projects without it. I've, lost a bookkeeper slash manager that I had for 30 years. And I figured I could do the whole thing on my own, you know, come to find out I couldn't.
yeah,
So I did the best I could with the notes, but I paid on the chin, if you
yeah,
will, for not being able to do that.
yeah,
So if that's it, that's you, we're talking about mistakes. That is a mistake that I made, and I know now I would never do another project without having the proper team,
yeah,
and having the proper team along with me. As a matter of fact, I'm opening up a new office, my old office actually, again in Weston, and one of the first pieces that I'm implementing, which I have a couple projects we're going to start, is that I'm implementing a facilitator, and that facilitator is going to handle all the products to be delivered to the job. So I'm going to have interior designers doing all the interiors and everything for the house itself. We're
yeah,
going to pass down the information, the flow, to the facilitator, who in turn is going to get all the product and have that checked and delivered um, to the site, um, and be ready for installation. And also,
and the
the
timing
world of
is right.
yeah, and the technology today is, even in the past 10 years, 8 years, the technology has changed so much. And what I'm about to say is that now with the new software packages that are out that cater to clients, um, software where clients can go into their on the computer and go on to call, like an example, like Bourque is one of them that I'm looking at right now. Also, is another one, Build a Trend, but Build a Trend is a very high, sophisticated, high-end residential commercial software. It's pretty complicated. So I'm trying to knock it down a little bit to, for everyone, that basically the software you're going to be able to, and let's say that you were, I was doing a project for you and you wanted to look at something at 3 in the morning because you can't sleep. Well, you can go in onto BillBook and go onto your specific job. Now you'd have a password to get into yours, and then you could look at your schedules. You could look at what you've paid to date, what you have left to pay. Um, you could look at all your selections. You could make a change, like do a change. I want to make a change order. You could say, well, all right. Oh, and there's a place in there, for an example, like you have like a text or like an email place, but it all goes to one location. So therefore, the communication for your job is in one location, not on your phone and my phone, where it's all over the place. And the next day you can't find it.
Right.
So in the scheduling, for an example, I would have this person, the facilitator, take care of all the scheduling and keep everything up to date for Larry Lawfer on their job. So you could look at it at 3 in the morning and you'd know exactly where you stand.
What's
10
going
years,
on?
8 years, yeah, 8 years ago, 6 years ago, you couldn't get that.
Yeah.
That was not, that was not out there.
Yeah.
There's several companies that are doing it now, and they get it to be pretty darn good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so again, it's another form of communication for the client,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
And
And it's,
the
so yeah, that's one thing that, go ahead.
the reality is that communication is absolutely the key, and you now it's gotten better and better and better, and the tools are better and better. Um, I like
100.
you. I like you have every Friday I call every one of my clients because they don't know what you're doing until you tell them, and it's called "What have I done for you lately?" And
Yep.
they won't know if it's a buy side or a sell side what actually activity that you're on. But
Mhm.
people tend to work with people they like and trust. And that like and trust is very, very critical when there's a problem. If you've
Oh
got a
my God.
problem and if you don't like or trust that person, it can be blown up. So it's um, clients are looking to work with the best people, but the best people are also looking to work with the most reasonable clients as well.
100% correct.
Yeah.
You're right. When there's a bad situation or a situation that happens, and the builder, for an example, is aware of it and can handle it in a way that is professional, that's what they're looking for,
Yeah.
because that's what they hired.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
everybody makes mistakes, but it's how you handle it and it's how you communicate is how you get through it.
Yeah. Hey, I want to
I
ask
think
you.
that's I have one more thing that I want to say. You had mentioned if there was other things, and I know this is a tough one, but a lot of guys, and I'm guilty of it too. So I'm not going to be in a glass house throwing stones. Um, is not charging enough for the projects.
Yeah.
They get, people get, three prices, four prices, what have you, for a project, and unfortunately, they take the lowest price, and they think they're getting a great deal, but at the end, you can't finish the job, you can't pay your subs, the job doesn't get done, and it turns into a disaster. I think that's one of the worst things you can do. I think that is, there's ways of making a fair profit without choking someone, but you got to come in, you got to be professional, but you got to be able to do it in a way to still make money and finish the job and send the folks some flowers at the end, and and carry this project because you gotta we give a warranty package for these houses and all the work that we do for a year.
Yeah.
Although our appliances, etc., run with the companies like I don't know, Thermador, for an
Yeah.
example. Well, the warranty runs with Thermador for the appliances. Okay, but if it's something what we do is no disrespect to Home Depot, none. But if I work with Jarvis or Yale Appliance, for an example, um, they have their own service people that they'll come out anytime in that year or anytime and fix that product.
Yeah.
That's critical. But
Yeah.
you got to pay for that. I'm paying more for those appliances. There's
Yeah.
a reason why I'm paying more for those appliances because I get the service.
Right.
Good luck trying to get somebody from Home Depot to come fix your oven. It's not happening. Zero chance of that happening. So then Mrs. Jones can't cook her turkey because the oven door locked. Now what?
Right. I have I
See?
I have
So
there's always a great story, but I got a great story for
sure.
with that.
Yeah.
I had a tenant who kept breaking the toilet. Um,
Mm,
uh, she was large. Everybody in the family was large. Somehow that toilet was broken every couple of weeks or something. So I called a guy, a Home Depot guy, and I bought uh, the most sturdy, paid a lot of extra for it, most sturdy thing, and that went in. So I was
yeah.
there when they got there because nobody goes into one of my properties without me being there, especially a tradesman or something, because you want to make
True.
sure. And then I stepped out because I'd worked with this person before, the person who Sears had sent, and so I knew that and stepped out. And then he was finished the job, came out, said everything's good. I did not go back in and look. been with this guy before, always did good work. Well, I got a call from the client, and oh, I love the toilet. I cannot close my bathroom door. It was too big.
Oh my gosh, it was too big. Oh my gosh, yeah, because I got an elongated toilet, and it's that extra inch and a half will do it.
And
Who knew?
yeah, I gone back in, I would have done that, and I would have said, "Hey, let's switch the door. Let's open the door the opposite way."
Right.
That's
Well,
what.
that's not easy. That's not an easy job. Now you
No,
have to redo the hinges to the
yeah,
other side. It's not. Yeah.
yeah. Well, it's not complicated though. It isn't an easy job, but it is a job that can be done and probably should have been
Absolutely.
done. And a good person would have known that. And that's why that was early in my career. Now I know I really have to ask questions and I really have to do because I'm not the consumer, but I'm the one that consumer's going to yell at. So
Of course. Yeah,
I,
I
I,
know that feeling. I know that feeling very well, Larry.
you've been married.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I was the last one, still was the last one standing in line. Yeah, believe me, I know. They all always came to me. Um,
When it goes down here, I'm lying at that bottom.
oh my gosh. I so am. That's why I used to be 6'5". I'm, 5'8" now. I know I've been pounding in the ground like a grade stake, so my
Anyway,
gosh. Yeah, but those are my two um, biggest, items that I say, communication and funding
yeah.
to make the projects go. And I think at that point you're going to have a successful project. Communication, I'd say, is number one out
Always,
of all of them.
always.
Always.
And,
Yeah,
and and it's not just one, it's constant communication.
constant. Yeah, you can't start at the beginning and be great, and then
Yeah.
do the big part of the job with no communication, and then come to
Yeah.
the end and be all communication because you want to get paid. It doesn't work that way. You
Yeah.
got to have communication all the way through the job,
Yeah.
so it's a normal procedure all the way through,
So
and
I
that's the only.
yeah, I know that your company builds all over Metro West. You're
Mm,
moving back into your newly renovated office in Weston,
yes.
which gives you
Yep.
kind of a central location. Um,
Yes.
so how is it that you're going to recreate that presence that you've always had during the pandemic? Everybody's presence was in their own homes. Uh, but now that you have a physical presence, all of your clients can come to that Weston office and go across the street, have a good dinner, or
Yep.
so how are you
Yeah,
going
that's
to?
going to happen. That's going to happen too, right? With the new tavern that's going to open up in
So
Weston.
so how are you going to recreate your presence in the town? Is there anything specific that you're
Sure.
thinking about?
Yeah. What I'm thinking about right now is that I have hired a marketing company out of New Hampshire that is going to basically rejuvenate the entire company. We're going to do some marketing campaign ads. That's why I've been doing this in stages to set up the office first. And then I was going to work with Kyle to rebuild everything, at the office and everything in mind. So then I'll work with, I know all the brokers in town. I know the architects that are there. Um, I know the people of trades magazines. Nan Mogart is one of them that
Yeah.
I think she worked with Boston Magazine at one point.
Uh-huh.
Now she opened up her own publication. It's actually, you'd be very, very good for her publication. When they built Weston Wellesley magazine? Remember that
Yes.
one?
Yeah.
Okay, this is a spin-off of the Weston Wellesley magazine. It's a much thinner
Yeah.
booklet,
Yeah.
but the people seem to like it. The people seem to like it very much because it's not this cumbersome book,
Yeah.
and people can go through it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So it's actually a really good one. And it's kind of funny because I built Nan Morgart's personal house in
Okay.
Weston.
Okay.
That was in 19. Oh my gosh. 93, 94, someplace in that area. I built a house for her in Weston on Bayberry. No. Uh,
Maybe you
yeah,
shouldn't.
Bayberry Lake.
Maybe you shouldn't
Maybe
give out her
yeah,
address.
yeah. She's no longer there.
Oh, okay.
She doesn't live there anymore. She
Okay.
moved. She
Okay.
lives in another location. That's why I would say it, because she no longer lives there. But it was a nice location in Weston when we built
Yeah.
that house. And
Yeah.
a lot of
Bayberry.
houses on that road that we built. We actually built the road on that road. So we built eight houses there at that time on that spot. But she's a very good source. So yeah, so what I'm doing is I'm re-energizing and re-putting my stake in the ground, if you will, over there in Weston to fire things up. With the town, etc., and back with the clients. So I'll reach back out to. I still have a lot of clients that I've built houses for over there.
Yeah.
So I'm going to reach out to them as well.
Yeah.
To say, hey, I'm back at the office. Come have a cup of coffee, and at the same time, say, all right, great. What are you doing over here?
Yeah.
Give me some friends, or I know we're all in the back nine, but they still know a lot of kids and younger people too that want to have houses built, So that's my goal, right now.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. And I think you should have kind of an open house and invite people
Yeah.
over there. You and
Yeah.
I, because we have over the years, we could sit and talk for another hour, but
Sure.
we've come to the
I
end.
think we've come to the time. My gosh, we
Yeah,
have.
it goes by so
I
quickly,
love
doesn't
this.
it? Yeah.
I had so much other stuff to talk about with one of the items, but I'll let you be because I know time's up. But if you could have me again someday,
I
I'd
will.
like to talk about energy, like heat pumps and some of the items, because one of the big items that wanted to touch upon was how are the houses like pre-COVID to post-COVID, and
The design.
what are the changes in the designs that families want now?
That was an interesting discussion. We do not
I
have
have
time.
a whole topic. Yeah, I have a whole topic on that. I'll let you be.
But let me suggest. I have the last show of each year. I have I invite people who have been guests on the show, and it's my gratitude show. So
Okay.
I have a variety of different people that come in and they talk what they're grateful for. I think that would fit comfortably. So if you're welcome to be part of that show as well.
I would love to be part of the show, Larry, very much. And I want to say thank you very much for inviting me for this. I would call this a podcast. Thank you.
It's been great. This is Charles Bourque of the Charles Company. Great builder. Go and talk to him. Call me first because I haven't gotten to work with him yet. But tune in next week for another great show.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Charles.
Recording stopped.